Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Out of the Box with Christine. I'm your host, Christine Blasdale, and I'm so excited about today's show. It's all about money, money, but not just money. Wealth and abundance can mean a lot of different things. If you have a lot of money and you don't have any time to enjoy it, that sucks. If you have a lot of money and your health is so bad, you really can't enjoy it. That sucks too. So my guest today is Julie Steelman, and I'm so excited. Okay, so Julie earned her way out of the corporate world at the young age of 47 by unlocking the secrets to a new style of feminine earning power. She discovered that all women, yay, possess an internal wisdom she calls feminine financial intelligence. And this is what's so phenomenal about her is that she was able to actually exit that corporate world at the age of 47 because she generated over $100 million in online advertising revenue. Julie is the CEO and founder of the Financial Freedom Institute and is known to her clients as a financial visionary, a wealth coach, and selling expert. This is why I had to have her on the show because I know how to sell too. And we've got so much to talk about. But welcome to Out of the Box with Christine, Julie.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and it's such an honor to hang and be in space with you. I met you recently, and I love your vibe and your energy and what you're about. And I think you're doing such a cool thing for people. And I love your show and the breadth of topics that you cover because you're not leaving out any areas of life. And that's so refreshing.
It's the hardest thing in the world when you have to list on iTunes, or now it's Apple Podcast, what your genre is. And I'm like, well, it is health and spirituality, and it is self-improvement.
It's the Blasdale bucket.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know. It's I have 5 planets in Scorpio. It's everything. It's reincarnation, it's health, it's wealth, it's everything. There's 3 things that I've learned as someone who I do a lot of sales, like a lot of sales. Not 100 million, but 18 million, something like that. But
that's good.
What I've realized is the things that people gravitate towards and need in their life, more than the latest gadget, is health, wealth, and love.
Yeah.
If you can cover those 3, you've got yourself a great deal. So part of Out of the Box with Christine is allowing my guests and master teachers, and I'm considering you now my new master teacher. I love to find out your journey, how you got to where you are right now. I said a little bit about you in the corporate world, but why don't you let our listeners know, and our viewers, let them know about how you got started in this crazy world of finance, money.
Yeah. Well, it started really long time ago when I was a little kid. I was 7 years old, and I remember this moment vividly. It was every Sunday night we would watch Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
Me too.
You too? Okay, cool. And for our younger audience, Google it, okay? Because you don't know what it is. We're totally dating ourselves. But it was this really cool show, and it was radical at the time that an insurance company was allowed to sponsor Mutual of Omaha, allowed to sponsor an entire television show. But what they did was brought us the African plains to life on our televisions on Sunday night, right?
Yes.
And so I sat there, and that was back in the day. You'll laugh at this, right? When we had the rabbit ears with the tin foil on it, you had to move them.
We had 3 channels.
We had 3 channels, and you had to actually get up and physically walk to the TV and switch them.
Yeah. And you had that weird UHF channel that was weird.
Never did anything.
No.
Yeah. My brothers called it ant races, because it was all just pixels.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was the youngest, so they made me get up and do it. And anyway, I would sit like arms link away from the television, and here I am, this little kid watching videos of lions and leopards and cheetahs and zebras and giraffes, and I'm like, and I was sucked into this other time and space. And it was one of those, I get these moments when it's like direct instructions from the universe, and it came in, and I was, even as a little kid, really clear, and it said, whatever you do, you have to go to Africa before you die. And I was like, okay, who said that? And it was like, I looked around my family, and I was like, nobody has a passport. They never left their zip code.
Where'd you grow up?
I'm like,
where were you?
In Chicago. I always felt like an alien anyway. I'm like, who are
freezing?
These people?
You're in freezing Chicago.
Right? They're like, get me out of here. And so, I'm like, the only way I'm going to get to go is if I can control my own destiny. And if I get my own say so about how my time, my energy, my money, and my resources are used and allocated. And that's when it like all clicked into place. It's what I call sort of invoking my wild instinct around this idea that I would have to make my own money. It was the only way I was going to get to go to Africa. My parents were never, ever, ever, ever going to sign off on that idea. Like, this is the neuroticism of a little kid, right? You don't know what it's like to be 30.
You think that's old anyway.
Right. Totally. I mean, at that point, you think you'll be dead when you're 40,
Yes.
And so I was like, that's what happened. And I had a father who didn't treat me any differently than my brothers and was very financially astute. And a friend of mine pointed this out to me a few months ago. It never clicked in that he was very nurturing and cultivating in that way. And I thought this was normal. And for most women, it's not normal at all. He never said, I'll bail you out. He treated me just like them. He's like, if you ever buy a house, you ever do this or that, I don't have enough to save you. So be really clear that you can afford it. And so it was very empowering in a way,
Yeah.
And so that's, went through college and I decided I needed to be in sales because if I was going to go into corporate, which is this radical maverick personality doesn't really belong there. My first 2 weeks in, I was like, I need to figure out how to earn my way out of here because I could get the hell out of here because I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And I picked a career in sales because the idea of sitting in a cubicle outside someone's office and they get to decide in December if I get a 2 to 5% raise or not was like economically not gonna cut it.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. And then I was in sales inside a man's world. And I found my way. I was like, so this is looking back, right? I'm so committed and focused to this dream. And so eventually I met my husband, we got married, we amplified our resources, we retired, moved to Hawaii and took our first trip to Africa. And I've never stopped going since.
Do you live in Hawaii?
Not anymore. I just moved back to California
Oh, I
2
love
years ago.
Hawaii.
I lived there for 10 years. Unfortunately, he died very suddenly and unexpectedly.
Oh, I'm
And
so
I got
sorry.
stuck for a little while. Thank you. And it's not a place to be by yourself, especially steeped in so many memories of my life with him.
No, and it is the heart chakra of the planet. So
For
also,
sure.
I could just imagine just
Yeah, it was a
feeling
little
him so much.
brutal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So then you came. So you're back here,
Yeah.
and this whole because I've seen your photographs too. I've seen
Mm,
they're stunning. I mean,
thank
you're an
you.
amazing photographer. Mutual of
Thank you.
Omaha, that guy. What was his
Right.
name? What was his name?
Oh, I can't remember. Oh,
Perkins or something? Perkins or
Marlon Perkins.
Marlon Perkins would be
Yes.
proud of you, Julie. I mean, they're beautiful, and
Thank you.
there's so much about documenting what's going on too.
Yeah.
I know I'm sure that the poaching and all of that stuff, and
Yeah.
with our current president, and I'm not being political right now, but also like allowing these big game hunters and
Oh,
trophy hunting and things like that. You've seen these animals up close and the majesty that they
yes.
possess.
Yeah.
Before we get into this too, what would you say is your let's say your favorite animal that you've seen and
Oh
witnessed in
man,
Africa?
that's a hard
I
one.
know, but you got to have
That's
a
a
couple
hard one.
top faves.
I'm kind of an apex predator girl. I really love the big cats.
Yeah.
And I think I love the leopards have a big place in my heart because they're so elusive, difficult to find. But then you're sitting in front of a lion pride and this animal that's just like kind of like, I know I'm at the top of the food chain. I don't really need to hide. I don't really care what you think. This is my terrain, that swagger that they have is so fascinating. But I really love the big cats.
Awesome. Well, that's why you photograph them so well too.
Yeah. Well, I just got back from I jumped on a plane 3 weeks ago right after I met you. There's a cheetah conservation story that I needed to tell, and so I spent 7 days trekking with 6 wild cheetahs. And it's a story that's going to be in my upcoming photography book that's coming out this year. So anyway, for me, the financial freedom became about financial freedom for good. and I feel implicated in these animals' lives and taking care of them. And not that I singly can impact a lot, but I found myself in the middle of trophy hunting. I found myself in the middle of rhino poaching. I've actually been where it's happening and it's brutal. And I'm just like, I can't, I can't, we can't. And so I really want to put together some efforts that are really focused. The money goes to the animals, not to executive committee of fantastic fundraisers. And no offense to any fundraising committees, I'm just really dedicated to majority of the money going to where the rubber meets the road.
Well, when you're ready to set that off, let me know. I would
Yeah,
love
we'll
to
talk. Yeah.
and I would love to get it to Jane Wagner and Lily Tomlin. Their life is
Oh my
dedicated to
God.
animals, so I would be honored to say, "Hey, you guys
Okay.
talk." Yeah, yeah.
Done.
So then so you've created the Financial Freedom Institute,
Yeah.
and I know you've also written I forgot to mention that you wrote a highly praised book, The Effortless Yes.
Yes.
So let's talk about like this whole idea too about empowering women around money.
Yeah.
Um, I guess you kind of set it off in the beginning with when you said your father was already expecting, you
Yeah.
know, what was expected of you as a young girl growing up set you up for your life.
Good.
And
Good.
what we expect a lot of times, what families, parents expect of their little girls is, first of all, they give them a doll to take care of, right? They give them a
Right.
baby
Right.
immediately. And this is what you're going to do, and you're going to wear pink, and you're going to be pretty, because that's how you're gonna, that's how you're gonna land the attorney or doctor. Um, let's talk about that, the mindset that we have
Yeah.
around girls, and especially around money.
You know, I think it's big and I think it's complex. And I think it starts with, um, back in the day of, we can talk about, there's evidence about Mary Magdalene, and I'm just going to talk a little spirituality here for a minute. Go back to the days of Mary Magdalene and the big denial of her as a woman, and her as had the belief is that she was anointing Jesus in, a very high level ceremony. And then here comes the Pope and says, oh, no, 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 she was a prostitute and was washing his feet.
She was a
And so
whore.
is a whore.
Yeah.
And so there's this whole idea of this disempowerment of the value of the feminine, right?
Yeah.
Just even in a global kind of, I don't want to get into a big papist argument or any of that kind of stuff and act like I know anything about high religion and orthodoxies. I don't. But what I know is that there was a seed planted a very long time ago. And I think there's this ongoing idea about the feminine and not its ability to not rise up to its fullness, not to be of equal value. Years ago, there was a guy who wrote a book called If Women Mattered, which said that the women's value in the United States was not included in the gross national product. So there's this already undertone of belief that is almost so invisible we don't pay attention to. When I was talking to you earlier, I was saying I kind of think it's in our DNA. I think one of the biggest ways to suppress the feminine from rising into full expression, into full power, is to try to control them financially, is to try to say that your value is less. And this is an area that we think that you should be disempowered in. And I don't know that it was quite that strategic, but this is where we are.
Well, and women were and still are around the globe property.
Exactly.
I mean, they
Yeah.
when I mean, arranged marriages, girls being sold off in marriage,
Yeah.
and their dowry, whatever that they, if it was a cow or something like that, that
Right.
had more value. The cow had more value than
Yeah.
the
You got
girl.
married to get the dowry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and you mentioned, and it's you mentioned that it's in our DNA. I mean, obviously, like young people who are growing up now, they may say, well, I don't know, Julie, now we have
What are
so
you
many
talking about?
opportunities.
Yeah.
We've got college, and
Yeah.
all of these things. We're breaking the glass ceiling. But if it's in our DNA, if it's not only our our mother's experience around money,
Yeah.
uh, our grandparents' experience around money, the Great Depression, how women were told, go in the kitchen, right? Be in the kitchen, that's it. But then also our own past lives, if you do believe in reincarnation, which I
Yeah.
do, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you
I do
do,
too.
in past lives, especially if you're a woman, it could have been that you were not financially set, and the world revolved around you. Just needed to secure your safety of you and your children, and
Yeah.
so maybe you married somebody that was,
Yeah.
not the nicest guy, but he was, security.
It was
you
a
know,
roof.
yeah.
I did it for a roof.
So that's all inside of us when
Yeah.
we go out into the world, and we're not even aware of it.
Yeah. Well, I think there's the reason I say that is because I feel like we're in a time when there's so much chaos because so many structures are falling apart. So it's kind of a good time, right? There's this eye of the needle we have this opportunity to go through. But I think each one of us that's down on earth are carrying a piece of collective consciousness. And so it's more what I mean by in your DNA than like if I were to extract your cells medically and look and go, oh yeah, she has a money block in her DNA. But I mean, we're all carrying, if it's happening in our family, in our world, in our lifetime, then we're somehow a part of that, right?
Because we are one.
Because we're one, exactly.
Right.
And so there's this, we don't really know what we mean by oneness or unconditionality. We have glimpses and moments of it and ideas about it, but it's very difficult in the human experience to actually spend time there. But I believe that with reincarnation and things, we're all down here to work something out. And I think that this is one of the big things, especially for women and those that orient around the feminine, and even entrepreneurism, whether you're a male or a female, there's stuff that you've got to work out around wealth, money, and prosperity. And there's these old ideas, especially in the United States and around the world. Each societal system has something that they're imposing upon everybody that's in that system. And so there's no way it's not in your consciousness if you're alive.
Right. If you're cognizant of anything, exactly.
Right.
And then you have religion.
Yeah.
Which the dogma of religion for centuries, and we see
Again,
those
all about impression.
Those falling apart too.
Right. Well, that's all predicated on the idea that if you want to get to God, you got to go through me. And I'm like,
you got to pay me.
You actually ain't the cleanest conduit I've ever seen.
Yeah, and you got to pay me.
Right? Yeah. And then here's the dish.
Yeah. Yes. And you're born in sin, by the way.
Oh, that one. Don't even get me started on that one. My brother and I used to sign into church as Frank Zappa and Janis Joplin because we were like, that whole assumption that you're forever a sinner and there's no forgiveness around that is completely the antithesis of what I understand divine love to be.
Exactly. I remember in so I grew up in kind of a really rough neighborhood. So my
Where
parents,
did you grow up?
I grew up in Pacoima, Arleta.
Yeah.
So, and there was a lot of gangs and stuff. And so my parents were like, oh my God, little Christine, blonde haired, blue eyed Christine, we can't send her to public school because she'll die. So, so the only private school that we could afford and that was in the area was a Baptist school. Now there's different kinds of Baptist schools, right? Yeah. The one I went to
2 years at one myself.
Okay. Sister. So it was so bad that and as children we're expressive, we're happy, we don't have a mortgage, we're like, yay. And I remember like bopping down the hallway, just kind of like doo doo doo, singing that song in your head. It's not a real song, but you're just like doo doo doo, and a hand came out of a doorway and grabbed me by the back of the neck. And this teacher looked at me and she said, "You're dancing, and dancing is the devil's tool." And I was like, the devil had nothing to do with that. It was just my beautiful dance moves. Like I was like, then, and this is relating to what we put on little girls. We had to have chapel every day. Okay. And in chapel, I remember this preacher man, and all the students were there. And the younger you were, you had to sit up closer, right? And we were little. And I remember sitting in the front pews. And he was basically doing the sermon about women need to stay in their roles. And sometimes if the husband, he comes home tired from work, and if he basically the summary was something like, if he hits you or if he gets, upset at you, basically just take it because that's your role. And I'm sitting in the front row, like 6, and I was like, no,
No.
no, that's not what Jesus would say.
No.
And I divorced myself from, I still had to go to the school, but I
Yeah.
divorced myself from all of that because I said, that is wrong.
It's so damaging.
But
Yeah.
imagine that's being told to
No.
little girls. You just
Yeah.
take it.
You just take it. And I think that stuff, it gets diffused, but the energetic of that is still in our society.
Yes. Yes.
And it's a form of, and I don't mean any offense to any ethnic communities, it's another form of racism, if you will,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And there isn't the gender equality. And it's like, the one thing I got to say to every woman listening, if you're in a corporate job and you don't do your research about what men get paid for the same role and you aren't standing up for it, you are colluding with the pay gap.
Say that
Because
again. Say that
because
again, sister.
okay, I'm okay, I'm sorry, I'm gonna piss a few people off.
Go ahead. Preach it.
But we have a pay gap because women continue to agree with this disparity instead of standing up for what's real and what's true and what's right. And positioning yourself as women are the great multitaskers, not men.
Aren't we?
Yeah. And so, having a really dynamic conversation with an HR department, or when you're asking for a raise, or, when you're going in and talking about how we're going to get rid of the pay gap, is that you bring me up to the level this job pays at. And it should be about the work that gets done, not the sex of the person who has the job.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so as long as we continue to buy off on, I'm worried about I'll lose the job if I try to negotiate for the right price, we collude with the lesser value.
Correct.
And then
Correct.
we continue to keep ourselves in that position. And so we have to take a stand. We have to be willing to maybe lose the job, but go find a place that will pay you what you deserve.
In your role as a wealth coach, yes, I would love to let our listeners know what you do with clients, and what type of clients that you have. You don't have to name anybody, but like
Yeah.
what type of clients, who goes to Julie Steelman and says, I need to work with you?
It's a classic. It's very smart, conscious, caring, entrepreneurial women who don't want to work for anybody else. These are women who I think are real pioneers. They're actually bringing in new blueprints of consciousness. They're very consciousness oriented. Then, like you, really focused on wellness and transformation so that we can all have a better life and the planet can be the place that we yearn to live in, and a lot of them are 6 and 7 figure earners, but they're not keeping very much of what they make.
Right.
And so there's a consciousness shift there, but there's also a shift in a practicality about how you run your business. And I noticed that a lot of pricing is not oriented around prosperity.
That deserves to be expanded on,
Yeah.
because I've had this conversation too with some clients. I do some coaching as well, and they're so worried, and there's that pay gap thing, right?
Yeah.
They're so worried about. They're like, well, I don't want to ask for too much, because if I ask for too much, then I won't get any clients,
They'll
and
go away.
or they'll go away. So at least I'll have a few clients if I lower my prices. And what I'm saying, what I tell them is that it needs to be based also on what you're giving and your energy and your time. It's worth the money that you should be charging, because this is your expertise, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's what you're expert at. And the more we just say, slash the prices, oh, we're on sale today, then you're always going to be doing that.
Yeah. The only business in the world that is successful at selling payments is car sales.
Right. Right.
right? And so,
Right.
and when they brought in leasing instead of buying, they changed the whole model. So now it's about getting you the right payment. It's not even about the right car. Like people are driving cars that are $100,000 cars, but the payment works, right?
Right.
So this is where we bring in this whole idea of it's in our DNA, it's in society, it's in the ethers of, if you're a woman, there's already a sense of eroded value. There's already a sense of underestimating true value. And I think we can take all the confidence classes in the world, but I think what we really need to do is think about what I call our quantum contribution. And so how does my contribution actually impact and enhance my clients' lives? Once I understand that, I stop questioning my value, right?
Boom.
And
Yeah.
it becomes less about, do I value myself? Because then that's very self-focused. And we have so much work to do there. You kind of never totally win at that game. You make progress. But if you're in business for yourself or as an entrepreneur, it's really about taking a stand. I call it advocating for possibility. Taking a stand for the possibility that your client can have if they were to work with you. Your job is for them your job is to communicate. If they knew what you knew, then they would say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Mm-hmm.
would find the resources to do it.
Correct.
Right? It's not about the money at all, ever. Because I think that you can charge what you can sell. And so if you only believe that you can sell $100 an hour, then that's what you'll sell. I know someone who gets $10,000 an hour. I know it's someone else who gets $1 million an hour because he doesn't want to work. He was one of the inventors of the Intel chip. He retired years ago. He's worth a fortune, but he has people come to him because he has one of these uncanny business senses. And so, really top of the food chain, C-suite executives go, I want to work with you. Here's $4 million. I'll talk to you once a quarter.
Wow.
So,
Right.
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 But
Right.
he's unapologetic about, I'm
He
not
doesn't want to
available.
work.
That's what an hour of my time is worth, or I'm not doing it.
That's the Elizabeth Taylor story.
Right.
Remember for Cleopatra, she didn't want to do Cleopatra.
Didn't want to do it.
You can't imagine Cleopatra without, Elizabeth Taylor.
Elizabeth Taylor.
But they were like, we really need you. What do you want? What do you want? And I think she had asked like a stupid amount of money for an actress at that time, because all the male, again, all the male leads were getting the top money. And I think she asked for like $1 million or something, like, just pulled it out of her hat. And she'd said, I want to have the chili from Chasen's delivered to the set every day. She had a writer that was like this long. And they said, okay. And she went, oh, shit.
I should ask for more. That was too easy.
They accepted it. And, and then Cleopatra was Cleopatra.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's what we think what we think we're worth, what we know we're worth.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest challenge that women have in business, entrepreneurship, either if they're working for a company or if they have their own business, is communicating.
Yeah.
Because you can have a high ticket item, or you can say I'm $300 an hour for this to be a coach or whatever, but it's communicating why somebody should pay you to talk. And let's be honest, there's a lot of people in the game now.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the game.
Yeah. So how do people stand, or how do you talk to your clients about standing out and that message, that communication?
Yeah. This is really where you start to get into the beginning of what I call the sales continuum, right? And I just want to say one other thing about the pricing before answering your question.
Yeah.
Is there's the practical, we've been talking about the inner game of pricing. And so the practical piece of pricing is that women tend to be really focused on, how do I solve my financial hot potato right now? So there's this horizon effect, right?
Gotcha.
And so it's like, okay, my kid needs to go to school and the tuition's $20,000 and my deadbeat ex-husband isn't going to pay it. So all of a sudden I have a hot potato. What am I going to do? Uh-oh, I have to go make $20,000. And so they get really focused on just the $20,000 and they put all this energy and effort into that, right? But they never take into account that there's all these other things that you need too, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, one rule of thumb that I would give people right away as a tip is like, if you get something that's a financial urgency or financial hot potato, double it. So if you need $20,000 to send your kid to private school because somebody's going to default on the payment, then put your energy towards making 40,000, because it
Gotcha.
takes as much energy to make 40 as it does 20, and then you get to keep something.
And that's a
Right?
falsity, because people, that's a false mindset where people think that they have to work
Totally.
harder. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got to put more
Yeah.
hours in. I got
No.
to really stay at the office late and all of that,
No.
right?
I think money, wealth, prosperity has a lot to do with intentionality, and has a lot to do, it's really steeped in co-creativity. My ability to create financial freedom was intentional. It was a little kid who wanted to go to Africa. It gave me this body of work. I never knew that would be part of the payoff, right?
Right.
And I went on this journey. And the biggest secret I can tell you from that journey, from a 7-year-old to 58 today, is that it's become a one-to-one co-creative, empowered, highly empowered, intentional co-creative relationship. I get to ask. I don't get to demand, but I get to ask. And then I get led. And so women don't really understand their value in terms of their ability to co-create in that way. And so they love to talk about flow and they hate to talk about money, right? But this is one of the things that comes into it, is like, you know what? I need $20,000 for my kid to go to school, but for me to be in a state of well-being, I need $40,000. So let
Yes.
me put my creative energy towards that, because it's in effect not a different problem. 40,000 isn't a different problem than $20,000. And so what I wanted to, make the point of is that when people are looking at their business or their incomes, they don't have an eye towards building wealth. They don't have an eye towards the future and creating a radiant financial future. And so our energy systems are really stressed out because there isn't any sense of I'm being taken care of in the future. It's all about right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, oh, phew, I got a paycheck. Oh, phew, I got a paycheck. And then we stay in that cycle, and it's really draining and exhausting, and it costs us our creative life force.
Oh,
Makes sense?
yeah. Yeah, it stifles us as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And especially around those blocks that we have around
Yeah.
money. I know, just in general, and this applies to men and women.
Yeah.
We have, money is the root of all evil. Uh, I know.
Okay, I got one for you on that one. Let's
What?
transform that one right now.
Okay.
Money is the root of all evolution.
Money is the root of all evolution,
Yeah,
because you can do so much with it.
that's right.
And it doesn't have to be self-centered. It can be,
That's right.
you can help the community. You can,
That's right.
donate it.
How about your well-being is intact and you
Yes.
can give from the overflow now?
Yes,
That's a different way to live.
exactly. So with your clients, what would be, like, let's say, a typical session? I know everybody's different, because I know you have clients that they span but if somebody says to you, okay, Julie, I'm tired of living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
I'm starting my new business, my consulting business or coaching business, and I want to be successful, and especially around money, around pricing, around investing, whatever, in my business. Where do you start with them? Where do you begin with them?
Well, I kind of do reverse engineering. So this is where we get into the visionary part of it, is I think that people that hold that as a question actually are really visionaries, and there's something that's really calling them. And so there's a bigger, bold goal and vision. And so what is that? What does that look like? And how would it feel to be there? And then we reverse engineer into I think everybody's carrying a medicine and a magic that somehow helps other people.
Mm.
And so you were asked the question earlier, like, how do you language that? How do you communicate that to clients so they can
Yes.
resonate with it and see themselves in your offer? So they go, oh yeah, that's the right thing. It's like, I think it comes from reverse engineering from your vision, because you need to know why you're being called into something. And then you need to know really deeply how what you do translates into a before and an after. And so the advanced move in that is really being able to say they came in with this belief and they left with it shifted in this way, or they came in with this problem and here's what we needed to do to resolve it. And you get really clear about those things. And when you find people that are really successful, especially with the internet marketing, and there's a lot of players in the field, and there's a lot of stuff being flung around out there, this is
Yes.
what cuts through. Because people looking for it start to go, oh my God, she said what I was thinking.
Right.
And
And
that's how you do that.
I love that. I love that idea of reverse engineering it. And that gives you the longevity too, when you have that mission or that goal. I had heard it, and I forget who did the quote could be attributed to, so I apologize to you, whoever quoted this. But it was something along the lines of, people don't buy products or services, they buy you.
Yeah.
And I think especially with women entrepreneurs, that's an area that hasn't been fully tapped.
No.
And it needs to be.
Yeah.
Because
Ulcers,
what we are is amazing.
yeah. We're totally amazing. And it's like this idea of reverse engineering, what's so genius about it is it gets you focused on the goal and vision and what you're of service to, the possibility. And all of a sudden your attention isn't on, am I value, am I worthy? Your attention's on the service. Your attention's on the possibility you want to create for people. And Ulster says something along the lines of clarity sells and energy closes. Something, I forget what his exact words are, but something along the lines of, it's like when we presence our energy along with having the right languaging of things, that's the magic formula.
I was just, as you were saying that, I was looking at some of your notes here on your media sheet, and the Effortless Yes, that's a book you've written.
Yes.
And I would love for you to share what you can. Of course, people need to get her book, The Effortless Yes.
Yes.
But we're not going to give you the whole book in a conversation, but
Right.
we're going to just tap into that. So you have some great tips, tricks, secrets for making selling easy.
Yeah.
And can you share like
Yeah.
one or two of those little tidbits?
Yeah, I think one of the first things I would say to everybody listening who thinks that they can't sell, if you've ever convinced someone else to go to your favorite restaurant or go to a movie you wanted to see, you can sell.
I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Like, in the book, there's selling archetypes. And so we all have our own resonant energy system. We have our own ways that we communicate. And so when you figure out what your communication style is, you can craft, in the corporate world will be called the close. You craft that into an invitation that's really conversational. So if you're an introvert, there's a way for introverts to say things, right? And
Correct.
so the book is loaded with scripts depending on what your archetype is, and you can kind of make it your own. But the tip that I would give people is that if you don't try to make yourself be something you're not, and try to become like the rock star salesperson.
Yeah.
It's really about why you care and communicating that to people and holding space for them to be able to make their decision. The biggest tip I can give you is when someone's making a decision about working with you, is that you hold space for the possibility and you don't go on their ride of yes, no, deciding up and down, and you take every one of their little blips while they're making a decision personally, because you're going to amplify their indecision. You have
Correct.
to hold space for what's possible and let them, your job is to be there when they need help navigating the decision-making process. That's really what sales and selling is all about, is being a loving force. The book was originally titled The Soul Principle of Selling, soul being serving others with undeniable loving, which means that you're holding space while they make a decision, but you don't buy off on any of their indecision.
Correct.
You're going to kill it right there.
I love that.
Does that make sense? Was that clear enough?
Yes, this is a good book. I want to get this book. Effortless Yes. Well, because it helps me, because I have many jobs, right? I do many things
Yeah.
because I like,
You've got your hands involved in all aspects of like
yes.
enrolling and selling and fundraising is even more a delicate balance.
Yes, and well, the first thing is that, and what I love about the work you do, it's all about integrity. I don't offer anything if it's my own services as a coach or consultant, or if it's in a fund drive with a product, or a healthy drink, or a seminar or whatever. I don't sell or offer anything unless I truly believe in it and I know that it is good and it's going to help people. I don't do it. I like to do the win-win-win scenario, right? I want it so that the listeners or the viewers, they win. My guest who has a product or a service that I'm bringing to the public, they win, and I win because I'm able to raise a lot of money for a nonprofit, or I win because I'm able to land a client and work with them. And it's not about the money that I get with my clients. It's about the process and
Yeah.
seeing them go from this little chickadee, you know, and just and guiding them and just saying, encouraging them. It's like being a teacher, right? You don't go to a student who's got horrible handwriting and go, "That's crap. You'll never amount to anything."
Right.
You guide them, but it's integrity. And
Yeah.
so that's like some of the things as far as that's worked for me is always having my integrity intact.
Yeah.
So 5 years from now, somebody can come up to me and say, "I'm so glad that I pledged during the fund drive, Christine, because what you offered changed my life." Oh my gosh, that to me is financial. It's reward as well, not financial, but it's a reward as well.
Yeah.
One thing that I can't stand, and I've seen this with not motivational, but speakers, right? They go to an event and they have they have a great speech. They got a great story. They have a great arc, and you know that it's coming. You know the pitch is coming, and we all know the pitch is coming. It's like after a good meal, you know the bill's coming.
Yeah.
You know it's gonna come, and you're like, okay, let's just see what the sticker shock is on this.
Right.
But what I don't like is when people have this thing of, if you don't do this offer, if you don't take this offer,
Mm.
your life is gonna suck. You'll never amount to anything. It's like a threat. It's almost, or like, it's this thing of holding you hostage.
It's
And
very fear-based. It's fear-based selling.
it's fear-based selling, and I don't like fear-based selling at all.
No,
At all.
because once the hook is set in that model, once the hook is set, you'll never get out of it
No.
because you'll do that and then they'll make you feel worse and then they'll sell you something more expensive and on and on and on. I know years ago there was a male coach, I won't mention any names, and this was the methodology and the languaging was very steeped in spirituality.
Oh.
There's a couple of his graduates that have lawsuits against them. And I had many people coming to me. It was all of a sudden this flurry. I knew who he was. And I'd sat through a workshop and I was like, oh yeah, no. As soon as you told somebody to divorce their husband so that you could get access to the IRA to afford to pay him for a coaching program.
Oh,
Oh no,
gee.
oh no.
Oh.
Yeah, no. And a lot of his clients were women, unfortunately. But then when like it all started to fall apart, a lot of them came to me and it was like, I was like, I couldn't in good conscience charge them. They were broken spirits. And I'm like, this is what we can't do. We like if
Yes.
as we build, this is almost taking us full circle in our conversation here. It's like, as women, this is what we can't do is tolerate or take a stand or stand buy into things that would have us continue to be small, that would have us continue to give our power away. And
Yeah.
if we're going to buy stuff, support stuff financially, a program, a course, a coach, or whatever, or a business model or whatever, it's got to it's got to be something that gives us our power and access to our power so that we can take that and rise up.
Yes.
Anything fear-based, anything that makes you feel small or stupid, or like the thing you got to watch in the room is the whole group mentality, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden you've got that salesperson on the stage and they drop the bomb. Oh, and if you go do it right now, and everybody's like, they will knock you down to get to the back of the room to sign up for something. I'd be really cautious about that.
I always am.
I'm always like, yeah, let me sit back and watch this. Because at the end of the day, if you go to them tomorrow and you go, I just wasn't sure, and I'll give you $1,000 tomorrow, but I wouldn't give it to you today. Do you think they'll take your $1,000? Probably.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And listen to your intuition too. I
100%.
had somebody contact me. It wasn't even the person, it was their assistant or something. And you've got to have this person on during the fund drive, your listeners. They speak to thousands of people and they've helped thousands of people become entrepreneurs, blah 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 blah. and I just, for some reason, I got a funny feeling. And remember, every show that I do, I have to have integrity, and it's like my baby. I'm trusting my guest to have
For sure.
a real value product or seminar, or it's the same thing with the podcast show. I'm telling people it's got the Christine Blasdale stamp of approval, so you can trust this source. And I just got like a icky feeling about this person, and I went on the internets and I just Googled the name, and all these scam, the word scam.
Wow.
This person took
You're
us
like,
for tens of thousands of dollars. We're broke,
wow.
And I was like, well, I dodged that bullet. There's no way.
No way. I think especially when someone approaches you like that, my rule of thumb is I look for someone who's proposing absolutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so as soon as it's like a should or a would, because people can be really gifted at taking you on a ride. And in the entertainment industry, right? Movies are all developed around an arc and taking you on this emotional ride and leaving you with some sort of impression or feeling tone.
Yes.
And, speaking is all designed to do that as well to some degree. But it's like my rule of thumb is, as soon as I feel a sense of being imposed upon, or told, or it feels like they're acting like they know something more than me, or that it's the absolute, the best, the only one, gotta, shoulda, coulda, woulda, that's what my flags all start going up. I'm like you, I'm a Scorpio. I've got all those signs in my Scorpion too, right? And so the hairs start to go bing, 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 bing. Yeah, no.
Yeah, you're like, nah, don't think so.
No.
Yeah, it's trusting that intuition, and that's something that I really encourage a lot of women to do, is to trust that little voice that you hear when it comes to these things, because it can. And I've known people that have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on programs and courses, and they later on regret it because they didn't listen to that inner voice.
Yeah.
They didn't get to that chance, that opportunity to listen to that little voice
I think
inside.
that's our job number one, to get back our own power in relationship to our own value.
Mm-hmm.
It's really what I call a piece of financial sovereignty. And sometimes you have to go against what may be popular, or what society says you should do, or what your family thinks you should do, or the environments that you were raised in, and unapologetically and lovingly take a stand for what's right for you.
Amen. A woman.
Mic drop.
Mic drop.
Mic drop.
What would you say? We have a few more minutes left, and I just wanted to ask, what would you say are, with some of the people that you've worked with, the biggest jumps or those aha moments that your clients have experienced while working with you? I love those aha moments.
Yeah. Me too. I think one of the biggest and one of the ones that across the board seem to land almost with every single one that I've worked with, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, is this idea of you have a business or your own personal life and a financial challenge shows up and you get really focused on just that financial challenge, like the $20,000. This was actually a real story of a client of mine. She'd gotten divorced. Her husband was going to default on his the payment for private school. She had a gifted daughter that was in the school. She wasn't going to take her daughter out of it, and she had 60 days to come up with the 20 grand, or the kid was, or her daughter was going to get was going to be removed from the school and have to go to public school. And so she was like, "What do I do?" And so
60 days?
Yeah, 60 days, because the husband always paid it, but then he wasn't going to pay it, but he wasn't admitting he wasn't going to pay it, but she figured out he wasn't going to pay it.
Right.
Right. So now all of a sudden it's her financial hot potato. It's urgency. She called me and I went over and I sat down with her and she said, "Here's this program. I think I can make $20,000 off it." And I go, "Well, there's a problem." And she's, "What?" "This is perfect." And I said, "Well, the problem is that you're focused on what I call transactional thinking, which is only on the $20,000. So you're going to put all this energy into that. And then let's say the program flies, you make your $20,000, it comes to your bank account and you turn around and write the check to the school. You did all this work and you're left with nothing." So
Right.
transactional thing, it's like a credit card, right? I only think about that one thing. I don't think about the whole thing. And so we started talking. And so this idea of transactional thinking, this horizon effect of only focusing on what's my financial urgency right now and trying to resolve just that problem without adding more money into it, without an eye towards building wealth, an eye towards keeping some of what you make every single time, especially as entrepreneurs, right?
Correct.
Plenty of 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs that aren't keeping it.
Correct.
They have great cash flow, but they aren't keeping it. And so lifestyle is like 4 figure, business 7 figure. That's a gap. That's a problem. And so this idea of only focusing on the financial need, or only focusing on, well, I got to get this program out and I want as many people in it as possible. And so I'd rather make it easy. So I'm going to put a low price on it instead of put a little energy into enrolling people at the commitment they probably should be making that would be more in alignment with the energy that you're giving. You're
Right.
creating your own burnout cycle financially and energetically doing it that way.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. No,
Okay.
it does. So how did she resolve it?
So how she resolved it is we started talking and all of a sudden she went, "Oh my God, there's this program that people had been wanting about a journey to getting engaged. And I haven't been putting it out there because they didn't know what to do." And so we sat the afternoon and we developed that program for her. And then she, being who she is, she launched it the next week. She ended up making $75,000.
Ah.
So she paid the school, and then she's also been wanting to take her girls on vacation, which she hadn't done in 3 years. So she took them on a little vacation. She paid down a loan and she put a lump in savings. And I'm like, and she goes, "Oh my God, you changed my business forever." And we still talk, and she still emails me that was the one single shift of going from 250,000 to over 7 figures.
Wow. That was huge. And
Yeah.
and also because you actually worked with her on developing it too. You didn't just say you need to think, because that's the other thing too.
No,
There's some people go, you need to
that
think
sounds
big.
really namby-pamby, right? Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, let's double your number." And it's like, well, yeah, and then lean into the creativity about
Yeah. And
that would resolve that number.
let's
You're
work
trying to resolve
this.
20,000.
Yeah.
What you really want to do is take your kids on vacation, and you want to pay down a loan, and you want to put some in savings. So when we came up with that number, it was 60,000.
And then you actually worked with her to put through the program.
Right.
Which, I love that. You didn't just sit up on a mountaintop and go, think bigger.
No.
Go do it.
See, that's when we get this idea of intentional and co-creativity. If I think in $20,000 as my big financial challenge, the creativity I'm going to come up to resolve that is a $20,000 solution.
I love the way you work because you think along the lines that I do. Well, because you're Scorpio too. Because you're also you're creative. You have that, again, not just a teacher saying, do this, do that. You have that collaborative, let's create something together, because you get your hands in it as well.
Yeah.
And instead of, and I know it's all also based on your time, you have only so much of you to spread around, but when we're able to do that for our clients, for our coaching clients or our consulting clients, when we're actually able to get our hands in and say, this is going to make you shine, this is an easier way to bring in the money, that is so much more valuable.
Yeah.
Than
It's why
just,
the term financial visionary came about, was because I've studied money my whole life, the whole spectrum of it, from earning it to selling to keeping it to building wealth to retiring. It's been my body of work. And so when people come to me, it's like I can actually see the through line for them. And I don't know why I'm gifted with that. Maybe because I've spent so many years steeped in it, but I think it's a gift that I have.
It's because you're Scorpio.
And, right? But
we see shit.
we see it.
We see it.
People see dead people. I see money.
Yeah.
But I can, as a salesperson, all of a sudden it starts to really make sense about what someone's bringing to the table and how to get. We can always set our goal to be 3 feet, but we could set our goal to be a mile too, right?
Yes. Well, you have that.
Your goal at a mile, you start resolving the mile. You stop resolving 3 feet.
You have that beautiful gift of seeing the long term. Whereas one reason why I started up, I have a little side business, My Idea Coach, and it's just basically because I come up with ideas. If I'm talking to somebody in a grocery store, there's an idea coming into me about how they can make money, or you need to write a book. No, you don't need to write a book. You need to actually make this into a script for a movie. And I see the title, and with products too. I do product development with people, and it's so fun because I already see the product. They'll tell me they go, oh, it's going to be called this, and I'm like, no. No, it's not going to sell anything. You need to call it this. Yeah. But
I love that. That's a gift. That's a gift, because we get myopic about our own work.
And it's fun, but that's the thing. That's where, if you're passionate about it and it's fun, it's not work, right?
That's right.
It's like coloring. It's like creating something. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I want to work with you. I want to do something with you, Julie Steelman. Scorpio.
I have a feeling that I'm launching a podcast and you're coming on mine, but we're bonded now, sister.
Oh yeah. No, we're creating something beyond a podcast, honey.
Yeah.
We're creating something with you and me, selling techniques and ideas.
Yeah. Okay.
It's $1 million idea right there.
I like it.
Yeah.
Let's go for the 8 figures.
Okay.
Then we could be on other people's podcasts that focus on
that. Anything that you want to leave our wonderful listeners and viewers with? We'll make sure that we're going to give out the website. You got to contact Julie if you at all are intrigued by this conversation. But anything you want to leave our listeners with?
I really want to leave you with that. I know if you were to tell yourself the truth, that you have a deep dream that has a financial vision piece in it. And if you were to allow yourself to really listen to what that is and open up to that, it would be a game changer, because your energy system will orient around bringing that into reality.
And
so when we take possibility and we start to make it probable
and profitable.
The probable, profitable, possibility.
The 3 Ps. My wonderful guest, this program has been Julie Steelman. Again, she's a financial visionary, wealth coach, and selling expert. She is the author of the book, The Effortless Yes. You need to get it on Amazon. And for more information, folks can go to juliesteelman.com. I'm going to spell that for you. Well, Julie, Julie, Steelman, STEELMAN.com. Please do check her out. And you're on all the Facebooks and the Instagrams.
Yeah, I have all my own names, so I'm easy to find. And on my website, there is the Blooming Rose Money Quiz. So you can take a quick quiz and find out where you are in relationship to financial freedom.
Awesome. I'll do that. I'll do that right
It's
after
fun.
this. Okay. Thank you again, Julie, so much.
Thank you. This was such a pleasure.
And I would love to have you on again. We can tackle whatever. Well, we're going to have a lot of ideas.
We're going to have a lot of ideas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Get ready, folks. Get ready, world. We're coming at you. Thanks again so much, Julie. And I want to thank you, wonderful listeners and viewers of the podcast show. You can please, actually, if you love what you're hearing, share this on social media. Share the YouTube video. That's the best way. It's easy. You can like and subscribe, all that good stuff. If you want more information about the podcast show, go to outoftheboxwithchristine.com. And if you want more information about me and some of the work that I do, the coaching and consulting and all that good stuff, you can go to christineblasdale.com. Until next time, I want to thank you so much again. And I want to remind you to always to think outside of that damn box. Bye for now.